You know how some people say life changes in a single moment? For me, it was 9:37 p.m. on a humid Thursday night. I was sitting in the garage, drinking a cold beer, scrolling through my phone when a text popped up from my brother. Brian, just married your wife. You're useless, BTW. That was it. No context. No emojis. Just that grenade dropped straight into my chest. I swear my heart skipped, then started pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. My wife, Ashley. My brother, Brian. Two people who weren't supposed to even cross wires like that, and here he was bragging about it like some drunk frat boy pulling a prank. I read it 5 times, hoping my tired eyes had scrambled the words. But no, every time it stabbed the same. And what did I do? Did I throw the beer against the wall? Did I call him? Did I scream like a madman? No, I smirked. I smirked because when betrayal is that sharp, laughter becomes your last shield. I typed back one word. Cool. Congrats. Then I sat there, feeling my world tilt but refusing to let it knock me down. Ashley was inside, probably lounging in her silk robe, acting like she was some goddess no mortal could ever question. And me? I was already turning into ice. First thing I did, I logged into the bank app and froze her credit cards. Every single one. No more shopping sprees on my dime. Then I drove to the 24/7 locksmith, paid triple the rate, and by 2 a.m. the house had brand new locks. She had no clue. I went to bed that night with a strange calmness in my chest. But let me tell you, calm before a storm is the most dangerous kind. The next morning, I woke up to banging on the door. Heavy, furious pounding. I opened it to find 2 cops standing there, hands on their belts, eyes sharp. Sir, we need to talk about an incident involving your wife. And just like that, the game began. The cops at my door, Officer Miller and Officer Rodriguez, were the first ripple after the stone. They asked about unauthorized card use and whether I'd recently changed the locks. I told them yes, calmly, because calm is a good disguise for fire. Miller scratched something in his notebook, glanced at Rodriguez, then said the complaint had come from my wife, Ashley Thompson. She'd reported me for financial abuse and domestic control. That was fast. It hadn't even been 12 hours since Brian's text from Hawaii detonated my brain. I invited them into the foyer. The new deadbolt gleamed like a medal. I froze cards tied to my account, I said. I changed locks on the house I pay for because my wife was out all night without explanation. And because I received a message that suggests she got married on an island to my brother. Miller's eyebrows did an odd dance. Rodriguez asked to see the text. I showed them. They took photos. They thanked me for my cooperation and left with bureaucratic neutrality. But as the door shut, I heard Rodriguez murmur, "This is messy." Messy was an understatement. I brewed coffee and opened a fresh legal pad, the same way I start client projects at work. My name is Ethan Parker, and I solve complex problems for a living. Turns out, betrayal is just another project. Ugly, yes, but solvable. Step 1, patterns. Ashley's behavior had been shifting for months. Late-night Pilates with a new instructor. Lights of her phone always face down. A rotating lexicon of excuses. Phone died. Lost charger. Girls' night. Too tired for intim **I. She'd begun calling me buddy, which landed like a slap wearing perfume. When we did have closeness, it felt rehearsed, like theater performed with the curtains closed. Step 2, receipts. I combed the bank statements, what was left of them before I iced the cards. Uber rides starting and ending at the same boutique hotel, the Westfield, across town. Double charges at a rooftop bar called Vista Blue. DoorDash orders sent not to our address but to a building on Pine Street. Names: Chris the bartender, Lauren front desk. A pattern of tips around midnight, then again at 1:40 a.m. I felt nauseous, but I kept going because truth demands stamina. Step 3, devices. Months prior, I'd slipped an AirTag into the spare key pouch after Ashley lost keys 3 times. I hadn't checked it since. I did now. The last known location pulsed on my screen. The Westfield. A room number followed by a little heart emoji she must have added in her phone's notes. Cute. I turned the phone face down the way she always did and laughed without humor. Step 4. Witnesses. Our neighbor, Jessica Bennett, friendly, brutally observant, had mentioned seeing Ashley training with a Pilates guy named Tyler who arrived in a convertible and smelled like cologne that could stun a deer. I texted Jessica, "Hey, random question. What nights has Ashley been out late lately?" Jessica called me immediately. "Ethan, I didn't want to stir trouble, but if you're asking, last Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday." She left with a suitcase. The guy wasn't Tyler. Different guy, tall, sandy hair, loud laugh. "Oh, and she handed him your garage opener. Should I not have told you that?" I thanked her. My chest was a pressure cooker. Step 5. Cameras. Our Ring camera captured comings and goings, but Ashley had moved it to face the hedges weeks ago. Claimed the glare bothered her. What she didn't know: I'd installed a tiny Wi-Fi pinhole cam inside the entry table drawer after her third lost set of keys. I opened the app, scrubbed through thumbnails. Midnight last Sunday. Ashley slipping in, kissing someone at the door, just out of frame, but the reflection in the hallway mirror showed him. Brian. My brother, Brian Parker. Hawaiian shirt, because of course. The footage shook me like an earthquake. Memory stacked on memory, childhood baseball, shared bunk beds, the day I was best man at his first wedding. I paused the video and stared at that shirt, those careless hands on my wife's waist. My ribcage felt too small for my breath. I set down the phone carefully because I wanted to break it with a hammer. I needed corroboration that didn't come from me. I called Vista Blue and asked for the manager, a woman named Madison Reed. "Hi, this is Ethan Parker. I think there's been some fraud on my account. Can you tell me what was ordered on my tab last Tuesday?" She read it off. Champagne, oysters, 2 desserts, a just-married sparkler cake. My mouth had gone desert dry. "Was there a note?" I asked. "Yes," Madison said. "It says, 'Congrats Ashley and Brian. Aloha forever.'" She sounded genuinely happy for them. I thanked her and hung up gently so I wouldn't scream into the receiver. Then came an alert from iCloud. A new shared album invite from Ashley. Accidentally sent to me? Title: Sunrise Vows. Inside, 2 photos before she rescinded access. One blurry shot of a beach arch, one of rings on a leaf. The invite vanished a second later, but I'd already screen captured it. Proof, glowing in my palm, radiating heat like a fresh wound. Sitting at the kitchen island, I wrote names across the legal pad. Ashley Thompson, wife. Brian Parker, brother. Jessica Bennett, neighbor. Officer Miller. Officer Rodriguez. Madison Reed. Tyler, maybe. Chris, bartender. Lauren, front desk. It looked like the cast list of a play I hadn't auditioned for. And there, underlined twice, was the Westfield, my map's bullseye. I told myself not to do anything reckless. So I did something precise. I booked a room at the Westfield under a different name, Michael Johnson, popular enough to blend. I packed a small bag, slipped on my plainest jacket, and drove. On the way, I stopped at a florist. Not to buy flowers, no. To ask a question. Did anyone pick up a rush order for a beach ceremony? The clerk, Emily Walker, checked her screen. Ashley Thompson, picked up Tuesday morning. White orchids, green ribbon. My hands trembled so badly I had to pretend to adjust my watch. I thanked Emily, walked back to my car, and sat there with the engine off. Discovery isn't one moment. There's 1,000 tiny knives you discover already inside you. And still, I turned the key and headed for the hotel, because sometimes the only way out is straight through the fire. The Westfield lobby smelled like polished marble and overused perfume. I checked in under the name Michael Johnson and rode the elevator up to the 7th floor. My heart was drumming a war beat, but my face wore a mask of calm. Calm is a weapon. Room 714. That's where the AirTag had last pinged. I walked down the hallway slowly, like a man walking to his own execution. From behind the door, muffled laughter leaked out. Her laugh, that sharp, fake little giggle she saved for attention, not love. And a deeper laugh I knew too well, Brian. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't make a scene. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of the door number, and then knocked. 3 polite taps. The laughter stopped. Pause, then whispers. Footsteps. Finally, the door cracked open. Ashley stood there in a silk robe, her hair tangled in that just-finished way that only fools pretend not to notice. Ethan? Her eyes went wide, but not with guilt. With annoyance, like I'd interrupted a spa treatment. "Evening," I said softly. "Mind if I come in?" She stepped back without answering. That's the thing about liars, they think silence is strategy. I walked in. Brian sat on the bed, shirtless, holding a half-empty bottle of champagne like a trophy. His smirk froze when he saw me. "Well, isn't this cute?" I said. "Family reunion. Should we order pizza?" Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh my God. Ethan, you're being dramatic." Brian coughed, muttered something about not the time. But Ashley raised her voice. "You don't own me. I'm not your property. If I want to spend time with someone who actually makes me feel alive, that's my choice." Her words landed like arrows dipped in acid. Not because they were true, but because they were rehearsed. She'd been waiting to spit them, storing them up like ammo. "Alive," I repeated. "Ashley, you told me last week you were too exhausted from work to even share dinner. You claimed migraines. And yet, here you are, Hawaii wedding with my brother, champagne in a robe. That's some miraculous recovery." She scoffed. "You're twisting things. I only went to Hawaii for myself. Brian was just there. You're overreacting." I turned to Brian. "So? Married my wife? Your words, not mine. You texted it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, man, I was drunk. We were just, having fun. It's not official. Chill. Fun. That word. It ripped through me harder than if he'd confessed a deep love. Fun meant my life, my vows, my years were just their weekend amusement." Ashley crossed her arms, her robe falling open just enough to prove her point. "You never listen to me, Ethan. You're boring. You're predictable." Brian, he gets me. He knows how to make a woman feel wanted. Not like you, always with your spreadsheets and rules. That was her dagger, using my stability, my loyalty, as if they were flaws. I felt heat climb my neck. I wanted to shout, to throw the champagne bottle against the wall, but instead I leaned against the dresser and smiled. "You know what the funny part is, Ash?" I said. "I already canceled your cards, changed the locks. You don't live in my house anymore. You don't touch my money. And the cops? They already stopped by. Guess what? They saw your brother's wedding text too." Her face cracked. For the first time that night, she looked unsettled. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would. And I did." Brian shifted uncomfortably. "Man, maybe we should talk later, just you and me." "No," I snapped, cutting him off. "You had your chance to talk before you crawled into my bed with my wife." Ashley's mask returned, sharper now, venomous. "Fine. You want me gone? Good. I'll leave. But don't think I won't take half of everything. Divorce lawyers love men like you. Stiff, naive, easy to break." She grabbed her purse, snatched her phone, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the champagne glasses rattled. Brian just sat there, silent. I looked at him one last time. My brother, the man I'd trusted with secrets, with blood. And all I saw was a stranger in my skin. I walked out without another word. The hallway felt like it stretched for miles, each step heavier than the last. But inside, a strange calm began to rise again. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was the start of war. I left the Westfield with my pulse still jackhammering and drove aimlessly. The city blurring like rain even though the sky was clear. There's a part of your brain that keeps trying to reboot after betrayal, like maybe if it restarts enough times, the old life will reload. It doesn't. It just shows you the same cracked screen. I pulled into an empty grocery store lot and let the engine idle. The message that started it all, "Brian's just married your wife. You're useless, BTW," kept flashing in my head like a neon sign over a dive bar. I think about the version of me that read it and smiled. That guy was brave. Or shocked. Or both. The version sitting in the car felt like a house after a fire. Frame still standing, everything inside charred. Anger hit first. Hot, animal, unreasonable anger. At Ashley for performing affection like theater. At Brian for being the kind of brother who'd toast to wreckage. At myself for missing clues that were practically scripted in bold. I punched the steering wheel. It hurt. Good. Pain meant I was still here. The phone rang. Mom, Karen Parker. I almost didn't answer, but she would keep calling. Honey? She said, shaky. Brian just posted photos from Hawaii. Something about found my forever. Is that Ashley's hand in the ring picture? I took a breath that felt like swallowing knives. Yeah, Mom. It's exactly what you think. Silence. Then a muffled sob and Dad, David Parker, took the phone. Ethan, he said, voice firm the way fathers try to be. Come over. We're making coffee. I told him I needed a minute. He didn't argue. We love you, he said, and hung up before he could cry too. The fury cooled into sorrow so quickly it gave me whiplash. I remembered the first time Ashley Thompson, laughed at one of my terrible jokes in college. The way she tucked hair behind her ear, the way she studied the menu like it was a contract. I remembered the road trips, the shared playlists, the night we promised that when storms came, we would face the same direction. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel and let myself fall apart for a full 60 seconds. Not longer. If you drown too long, it becomes habit. Then guilt. The useless kind. What did I do wrong? Was I boring? Did my spreadsheets and early bedtimes make me unlovable? She called me predictable, like it was a crime. But predictability kept our lights on, put us in a home, paid for anniversaries she forgot. I thought of Jessica Bennett next door, her blunt kindness, how she'd noticed the convertible and the cologne and I'd shrugged it off. I told myself I was trusting, not blind. Maybe I was both. A sudden knock on my window made me jump. A security guard, Marcus Lee, gestured for me to roll it down. You okay, man? He asked, concerned but professional. I surprised myself by telling him the truth in 5 flat sentences. He listened, then nodded like he knew the terrain. You're not crazy, he said. You're grieving. He patted the window frame and moved on. Small mercy, big impact. I drove home, where the quiet was too loud. In the kitchen, I found a note under a magnet shaped like a pineapple. Ashley's handwriting. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We both deserve to be happy. I stared at it like it might confess something human. Didn't. I slid it into a folder with everything else. Receipts, screenshots, the hotel manager's name, Madison Reed, the bartender, Chris, the front desk, Lauren, the Pilates ghost, Tyler, my new, awful scrapbook. The doorbell rang. Police again. Officer Miller and Officer Rodriguez, doing a wellness follow-up, because Ashley had filed another complaint, this time hinting I might damage property. Rodriguez looked around at the tidy living room, the untouched walls. You're fine, he said, but document everything. I nodded and thanked them. When they left, the house felt even emptier, like they'd vacuumed the air on their way out. Anger made a second pass tighter, colder. I opened a clean page in my legal pad and wrote, rules, not for her. For me. No begging. No bargaining. No breaking things. No late-night texts. No checking her socials. Eat, sleep, lift something heavy. Call people who know my middle name and my worst stories. I texted my best friend, Daniel Brooks, the lawyer, because irony has manners. He called immediately. Collect, don't confront, he said. You did the confrontation. Now protect your assets, your health, and your story. I tried to eat. Toast tasted like chalk. I tried to sleep. My brain projected highlight reels of Ashley's robe, Brian's champagne, the mirror reflection that should not exist. I got up and took a shower hot enough to peel paint. Under the water, I let the sadness wash over me in waves. The memory of a wedding dance, of keys on a shared hook, of quiet Sunday mornings when the only drama was the coffee running out. At 2 a.m., as if cued by fate, a text popped up from an unknown number. You okay? It was Olivia Green from work, HR's quiet, kind tornado. She must have caught wind of the financial abuse complaint Ashley filed. I typed back, "I'm safe. Allegations are false. I can bring documentation." Olivia replied, "Do. Also, eat something." That last part got me. It's wild how practical kindness can feel like a life raft. Around dawn, the anger thinned into a hard clarity. Acceptance isn't forgiveness. It's choosing to stop arguing with gravity. Ashley and Brian had made a decision together, careless, selfish, breathtaking in its speed. I could spend the rest of my life trying to solve the why, but there's no math for entitlement. There's only a ledger, what I control, what I don't. I can't control their vows under a fake sunrise. I can control the lock on my front door and the lock on my sanity. I stood at the window and watched the street wake up. Dog walkers, joggers, a school bus sighing to a stop. The world, indifferent and beautiful, kept going. So would I. I wrote one more rule. Feel everything, but don't let anyone feeling become the landlord. Then I put on shoes, stepped into the morning, and started running, each footfall a small refusal to stay broken. By the time the weekend hit, I realized decisions weren't going to wait for me to feel ready. Life doesn't pause when your marriage burns. Bills still show up. Jobs still expect you at 9 a.m. Neighbors still wave when you pull into the driveway, pretending they don't hear the rumors spilling faster than the morning paper. The first decision, lawyer up. I called Daniel Brooks, my best friend since high school, now a sharp divorce attorney who'd seen everything. He came over with 2 coffees and a binder that looked like a battle plan. "Ethan," he said, flipping pages, "you're not just divorcing a wife. You're divorcing a liar who's already gone nuclear by dragging cops into it. If she's willing to accuse you of financial abuse after you change the locks on a house you pay for, imagine what she'll say once we file." The word nuclear stuck. Ashley wasn't the type to leave quietly. She'd torch the fields just so no one else could harvest them. Daniel leaned in. "The good news? You've been documenting. The texts, the screenshots, the AirTag, the hotel receipts. That's gold. Courts love receipts. We'll make sure the narrative doesn't get flipped." Decision 2. Face my parents. I drove to their house on Sunday. Mom, Karen, opened the door before I even knocked. She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. Dad, David, stood behind her, stiff as oak, but his eyes were red. Mom whispered, "How could Brian do this? Not Ashley. Not even a mention of her. Just Brian." That hurt in a new way. My brother wasn't just my betrayer. He was their son too. Dad poured whiskey before noon, something he hadn't done in years. We sat at the table in silence until Mom finally said, "Ethan, whatever you do, don't let them make you bitter." Bitter. That word tasted like ash in my mouth. But I nodded. For her. Decision 3. Protect the house. Ashley texted me at 3 a.m. ranting, "You can't just lock me out like some stranger. I'll get the law involved. This is MY House too. You think you can just erase me? Wait until the judge hears." I didn't respond. Instead, I installed new security cameras, front, back, inside. Not paranoia. Evidence. If she tried to break in or plant anything, I'd have footage. Decision for my brother. Do I confront Brian face to face? Or let silence be the scar? I wrote out 2 drafts of text. Draft 1. "You're dead to me." Draft 2. "You're still my brother, but I'll never respect you again." I deleted both. Some words aren't worth sending. I decided the best confrontation with him was absence. No explanations. No late-night calls. He'd live the rest of his life knowing he was the brother I cut out like a tumor. Decision 5. The divorce itself. Daniel laid it out plain. If you go amicable, she'll gut you slowly. If you go aggressive, she'll still fight, but at least you'll be armed. Which Ethan do you want to be? I thought about Ashley's robe in that hotel, her smirk as she called me boring, her note about we both deserve to be happy. My jaw clenched so hard I tasted metal. Aggressive, I said. Daniel nodded once. Then tomorrow we file. But filing wasn't the hardest decision. The hardest was the internal ones, the rules I'd written for myself after the cops left. No begging, no bargaining. But there was a rule I hadn't written yet, one that scared me. Do I still love her? Because if the answer was yes, even after everything, then I was more broken than I thought. I tested myself. I opened an old photo album on my laptop. Vacations, birthdays, nights when she leaned into me like I was her only world. Did my chest ache? Yes. Did I want her back? No. The difference mattered. The ache was grief. The absence of desire, that was freedom starting to bloom. Decision 6. What kind of man I'll be after this? Bitter or better? I could drink myself stupid, or I could build a version of Ethan who wouldn't be fooled again. I thought of Marcus Lee, that night shift security guard who told me I was grieving. His words stuck. I was grieving, but grief is meant to end. So I laced my shoes again and ran. Each step, I whispered a choice. Not broken, not bitter, not hers. My lungs burned, but the mantra steadied me. Back home, I stood in the quiet kitchen and realized something wild. I wasn't scared anymore. Hurt, yes. Furious, yes. But fear? Gone. Ashley couldn't take from me what she hadn't earned. Brian couldn't steal what he'd never deserved. And so, when Daniel texted later that night, "We're filing at 8 a.m." I typed back one word. Ready. At 8 o'clock sharp, Daniel filed the papers. Divorce. Grounds, adultery. Evidence attached. Screenshots, receipts, witness statements. By 9:15, Ashley knew. How? Because she stormed into my office like a hurricane disguised in designer sunglasses. I work at a tech consulting firm, open floor, glass walls. Everyone saw her strut in, heels clicking like bullets. She slammed her purse onto my desk so hard my coffee jumped. "You think you're clever?" she hissed. "Dragging my name through the mud? Filing behind my back? You're pathetic, Ethan." The office went silent. My coworkers froze mid-keystroke. I kept my tone cool. "You married my brother in Hawaii, Ash. What mud could possibly be worse than that?" She leaned in, eyes blazing. "It wasn't official. We were just celebrating. You don't understand passion, so you label it betrayal." The audacity. My hands trembled under the desk, but I forced them still. Celebrating what? Destroying two families? She smirked. Destroying? Please. Brian makes me feel alive. You never did. You're a glorified calculator in human skin. And now you'll pay for humiliating me. Then she dropped the bomb. "I've already filed for spousal support. I'll tell the court you controlled me, monitored me, abused me emotionally. Women win these cases, Ethan. You'll be a ghost with debt." My vision tunneled. She was weaponizing the system, turning lies into knives. I thought of Officer Miller and Rodriguez. Their warnings about messy. They hadn't even scratched the surface. Security escorted her out eventually. She blew me a kiss on the way, laughing like it was all a game. My coworkers stared. Some with pity, some with curiosity. Humiliation wrapped around me like chains. That night, Daniel came over again. We went through her countersuit. Claims. Financial abuse, controlling behavior, withholding affection. Lies stacked like rotten bricks. Daniel rubbed his temples. "She's going scorched earth. But we have receipts. Stay calm." Calm. The word felt like a dare. The next morning, I woke to pounding on the door. Not cops this time, process servers. Papers shoved into my hands. Ashley demanding half the house, half my retirement, and monthly alimony. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I'd vomit. I called Mom. She cried, begged me not to lose faith. Dad said, "Fight smart. Don't swing wild." Advice from a man who'd worked 40 years in steel and never let a foreman break him. But the storm wasn't done. 2 days later, my boss, Mr. Collins, called me in. "Ethan, HR received a complaint. From your wife." My chest sank. He continued, "She alleges you harassed her digitally. Constant surveillance. Obsessive texts." He looked at me carefully. "Is any of this true?" I showed him the folder, Ashley's texts, the AirTag data, screenshots of her messages. Collins frowned, then sighed. We'll document this. But Ethan, keep it professional. No slip-ups. Ashley wasn't just trying to bleed me in divorce court. She wanted to nuke my career, my livelihood, my identity. That evening I got another text. Not from Ashley. From Brian. Look man, she's exaggerating. You know how she gets. Don't take it out on me. We didn't mean for it to go this far. I stared at the screen, shaking. My thumbs hovered. Finally, I typed back. You ruined more than a marriage. You ruined blood. Don't text again. And I blocked him. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I paced the house, every creak of the floorboards sounding like ghosts. I wanted to smash plates, punch walls, scream into the void. Instead, I sat at the kitchen island with whiskey and my legal pad. I wrote, Ashley equals liar, manipulator, master of masks. Brian equals coward, opportunist. Me equals survivor. Then I underlined it twice. Survivor. 3 a.m. Headlights swept across my window. I peered through the blinds. Ashley's car, pulling into the driveway. She stumbled out, heels in hand, dress wrinkled. She staggered to the door and tugged at the handle, forgetting I'd changed the locks. She pounded the door. Let me in, Ethan. This is MY House 2. Don't make me call the cops again. I hit record on my phone. Document everything. She kept yelling, hurling insults, threats, even fake sobs. Eventually, she slumped onto the porch and passed out. At sunrise, I called Officer Miller. He came, shook his head, and told me, You're doing the right thing. Don't engage. Don't open the door. They escorted her off the property. I stood there, hands shaking, watching the car disappear. It felt less like watching her leave, and more like watching the last illusion of my old life vanish into the distance. This was aftermath, all right, not the quiet after the storm, but the wildfires that follow lightning. Yet in the middle of it, a thought struck me. She could burn everything, but she couldn't unmake me. I poured myself coffee, looked at the mess, and whispered to no one. War's not over, but I'm still standing. People always say betrayal teaches you something, like it's some kind of free seminar you never signed up for. I used to roll my eyes at that. But sitting here now, months later, pen in hand and scars still fresh, I can tell you, it's true. You don't walk away from being gutted by your wife and your own brother without some hard-earned truths carved into your bones. The first lesson: silence is a weapon. When Ashley stormed into my office, when she screamed outside my locked door, when she flooded my phone with messages accusing, crying, seducing, threatening, my instinct was to respond, to defend myself. But every word I didn't send became armor. Every silence was a rope I refused to hand her. If you're ever in this situation, remember that. Don't hand your betrayer a weapon crafted from your own words. The second lesson: documentation beats emotion. In the heat of heartbreak, your instinct is to cry, to yell, to explain. But courts don't care about tears. Employers don't care about anger. Judges and bosses care about facts. Screenshots, receipts, witnesses, dates, times. That binder I built, names like Jessica Bennett, Officer Miller, Madison Reed, it saved me. It anchored me when Ashley tried to flip the script and paint herself as the victim. Men don't get the luxury of being sloppy with evidence. You need proof, not poetry. The third lesson: blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Brian was my brother by DNA, but betrayal proved something my heart didn't want to accept. Not every family member is family. I spent weeks trying to make sense of it. Was it envy? Was it thrill-seeking? Was it just selfishness? None of the answers healed anything. What mattered was this: trust has to be earned, not assumed. Even with blood. Especially with blood. The fourth lesson: bitterness is a choice. I could have let Ashley's venom poison me forever. And some nights it tried. I'd replay her sneer. Her "you're boring, predictable," a calculator in human skin. But eventually, I realized bitterness would chain me to her long after she was gone. Letting go wasn't forgiveness. I'll never forgive. Letting go was me choosing not to let her live rent-free in my skull any longer. The fifth lesson, you're stronger than you think. Before all this, I used to wonder how people survived infidelity. I thought I'd collapse if it happened to me, and for a while I did. But piece by piece I rebuilt. The day I stood at my window at dawn, whispering, not broken, not bitter, not hers. That was the first brick in the new foundation. Strength doesn't show up with trumpets. It shows up quietly, when you get out of bed instead of staying under the sheets. There were practical lessons, too. Change your locks immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't confront in rage. Rage makes you sloppy. Record everything, even if it feels petty. Find allies. A lawyer, a friend, a parent who answers at 3 a.m. You can't do it alone. But maybe the most important lesson is this. Betrayal isn't the end of your story. For weeks, I thought Ashley and Brian had stolen the rest of my life. Like my timeline had been cut short, erased. But they didn't. They just forced me to write a new chapter sooner than I planned. I look around now, at the house that's mine again, at the job I kept despite her complaints, at the people who stood beside me when everything crumbled, and I see something clearer than I've ever seen before. Ashley didn't break me. She revealed me. She peeled away the illusions, the comfort, the blind loyalty, and showed me the man underneath. A man who can survive betrayal, police at his door, lawsuits, smear campaigns, sleepless nights, and still stand up, shave, tie his shoes, and walk into a new day. Would I wish this experience on anyone? Hell no. But if you find yourself in my shoes, here's my advice. Don't chase answers from people who thrive on lies. They'll only spin you deeper. Keep your dignity. Walk out of the hotel room, not into a shouting match. Trust actions, not words. Their actions told me the truth months before their mouths did. And most of all, choose who you want to be after. Not a victim. Not a permanent cynic. Choose survivor. Choose builder. Choose better. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I remember the moment I texted Brian back, "Cool. Congrats." At the time, it felt like a mask. Now, weirdly, it feels like prophecy. Because one day I really will say congrats, not to them but to myself. For surviving. For refusing to rot in bitterness. For stepping into a life that's mine, untethered from liars. Ashley wanted me erased. Brian wanted me replaced. Instead, they both just wrote themselves out of my story. And me? I'm still here. Stronger. Smarter. Sharper. Free. I thought it was over. Papers filed. Lawyers engaged. Ashley fading into the background like a bad dream that refuses to linger. I'd rebuilt enough of myself to breathe without the weight pressing my ribs in. But life likes to test whether you really learned your lessons. And the test came with another knock at my door. It was late, just after midnight. The neighborhood was quiet except for crickets. I opened the door half expecting drunk kids, maybe a delivery mistake. Instead, there she was, Ashley. Not glamorous. Not smirking. Not wrapped in silk. She looked wrecked. Hair messy. Mascara smudged. Wearing a hoodie that wasn't hers. Her eyes were wild. Red-rimmed. "Ethan," she whispered. "I need help." I stood there, gripping the frame. Every nerve in me screamed to slam the door. But she looked so hollow, so unlike the venomous woman who'd spat threats across my office desk, that my chest ached with something I hated, pity. "What do you want, Ash?" My voice was flat. She swallowed hard. "Brian's gone. He left me. Took the money, disappeared. He was using me, Ethan. I didn't see it." The irony nearly knocked me off my feet. My own brother had betrayed her the same way she betrayed me. The betrayal had folded in on itself like some sick origami. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't touch me." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't have anywhere to go. Please, just a couch, one night. For old time's sake." Old times sake. The phrase twisted in my gut. Old times weren't just laughter and road trips. They were lies, hotel rooms, champagne bottles, cops at my door. Old times were the ashes I'd been clawing my way out of. Behind her, headlights pulled into my driveway. A squad car. Officer Rodriguez stepped out, flashlight in hand. "Everything okay here, Mr. Parker?" Ashley spun, frantic. "You called the cops on me?" I shook my head. "Didn't have to. Guess they're my guardian angels now." Rodriguez walked up calmly. "Ms. Thompson, you were told not to harass or trespass. This is your final warning before charges." Ashley broke. She crumpled to her knees right there on my porch, sobbing. "I just wanted to come home." Those words, "come home," hit harder than any slap. Because the truth was, she never treated it as home. Not when she turned it into a staging ground for lies. Not when she handed my garage opener to strangers. Not when she wrote that smug note about "we both deserve happiness." "This isn't your home anymore," I said, voice shaking but firm. "You made sure of that." Rodriguez gently pulled her up, guided her to the car. She sobbed louder, almost theatrical again, but I didn't flinch. I watched as the cruiser rolled away, her silhouette small behind the glass. When the taillights disappeared, silence swallowed the night. I leaned against the doorway, heart hammering. It felt like the final act of a play that had run too long. The curtain finally, mercifully, dropping. Inside, I poured myself a glass of water, not whiskey. My hands were steady this time. I sat at the kitchen island, the same spot where I'd once collected receipts and rules, and opened my legal pad. On the last page, I wrote one line: "Closure isn't given. It's chosen." That was the final lesson. Ashley hadn't come for redemption. She came because her new world had collapsed. But her collapse wasn't my burden. My closure didn't depend on her apology, her downfall, or her tears. Closure was me refusing to let her inside again. Literally and figuratively. I closed the pad, placed it on the shelf, and felt the strangest thing. Peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just a quiet peace, like standing at the shore after a storm, listening to the calm waves. Later, as I lay in bed, I thought of the first text from Brian. The spark that lit the whole fire. "Just married your wife. You're useless, BTW." I almost laughed out loud in the dark. Because if I'm useless, why am I the one still standing? Why am I the one with a house, a job, dignity intact, and a future? And where are they? My brother vanished. My wife escorted away in tears. That's not useless. That's survival. That's strength. If you're reading this and you're where I was, staring at texts you can't unsee, choking on betrayal you never thought possible, hear me. You will survive. You will hurt, yes. You will rage, cry, question every piece of yourself. But if you stay still long enough to let the storm pass, you'll stand up different. Stronger, sharper, wiser. And one day, like me, you'll close the door on the ghost of your betrayer, and you'll realize the truth. They didn't break you. They freed you. And that's the ending no one can rewrite.